We talked to Andy Digenova about the 3 rides that have had the biggest impact on him and his career for The Rides That Made Me on episode 360 of the Unofficial Universal Orlando podcast. Hey everyone, I'm your host Lee. I have no Darren, no Tracy, no Chris, but I am joined by a friend. This is another Rides That Made Me, and for those that don't know what it is, go back and listen to our previous ones with the awesome Adam Bizarkon and the lovely Julie Zimmerman, and our last one with Jason Stroh, which was awesome. Let's introduce our guest first before we get into what it's actually about, but he's a friend of the show. He has been on the show. For those that stick to the bitter end of every show, they will hear him on every show, but this will be the first time we get to interact with him for quite a while. So, Andy Digenova. Andy, welcome back onto the show. It's been a long time, actually.
It is very, very long. Hello, Lee, and even though they're not here, hi, Tracy, hi, Darren, hi, Chris, but it's okay. I got the best of the 4, so... I'm excited about that, but it's great to be back. I'm excited to talk some theme park nerdery with you.
I'm trying to think, actually, when the last time we had you on. I'm trying to think if we had, because we had you on to talk about when Transformers opened at Universal Hollywood.
Yeah, which was like 2011,
yes.
2012,
no, it
maybe?
Wasn't. It was the Real Fans versus UUOP episode when we had you and Roman on to talk about, I think we did we do E.T.? I threw Minions at you. I think we did Men in Black. And the Mummy.
Okay. Oh, God. That was a while ago. Yeah. But it was fun. After we listened to that, because I don't remember what I said.
Right, so yes. So the Rides That Made Me. So I've set Andy the same challenge that I set Adam, Julie, and Jason, and that was to come up with 3 attractions that have had the biggest impact on him as a person and his career in theme parks, which is, you've been in theme parks for quite a while now, Andy, yes?
Yeah, I mean, if you count... when I, my very first job in a theme park, that would have been in 1997, so 22 years.
Are we allowed to talk about who your current employers are, or are we not?
I don't know. Let's just say that I am a show producer for themed entertainment, and I've done that for many companies, most of which you've heard of.
Yes.
Does that work? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I could say or not, but yeah, I am now a producer on the design side of theme parks. But I started my very first job was in merchandise down at Walt Disney World in 1997.
Well, we had one of your higher ups on a couple of months back, actually, Mr. Dave Cobb, to talk about Men in Black, which was awesome.
He was a previous higher up.
Yes,
we're not working together anymore, but he is a delightful guy, and I enjoyed that episode. I liked hearing about Men in Black. That was super fun.
I actually found out stuff that I didn't know about that attraction, which was quite surprising. But yeah, Dave was awesome.
Well, when I was there a couple weeks ago, and I kept trying to find, what did he call it? It was like Rainbow Bear.
Oh yes,
something. I kept looking for it, but it's hidden well because I can't find it. But I was like I want to find that thing now, but no luck yet.
No. Yes, someone needs to find that and take a picture of it. But Andy, yes, we are not here to talk about Dave Cobb. We are here to talk about you.
Yes, let's talk about that.
You have your 3 attractions.
I have them.
You are happy with your choices.
I am. There was a lot of narrowing down. It was hard to pick 3 because, as you know, as theme park fans and then someone who works in theme parks, I have a lot of attractions that I love, that have inspired me, that have changed the way I look at the industry and what we do. And so I had to make some tough decisions, but I feel pretty good about the 3. But, just to clarify, like you and I talked about it before we started recording, but for all our friends at home, it's not my 3 favorite. It's the 3 that I think really changed the way I looked at what theme parks can do and inspired my career, like in what I do.
Yes, and I don't know what these are, so I'm going in blind, so I'm quite interested, because, Andy, we're friends. I think I know you a little bit, but I have no idea what you've got. I think one of them kind of got mentioned earlier before we started recording, maybe.
I think that at least one. I don't know if any will be a huge shock, but at least one, my guess is you'll already know.
Okay, right, well, let's kick it off then. In no particular order, what is your number 1 attraction, Andy?
My number 1 attraction. because for years and years, I would call this my favorite attraction. But the reason I called it that is because it's the attraction that like blew my mind and really opened my eyes to the difference between theme parks and amusement parks. And so that attraction is one of the very first attractions I ever rode at Walt Disney World at the Magic Kingdom, and that is Splash Mountain.
Oh, I was not expecting that.
I know. So yeah, I mean, because again, like they're the ones that everyone talks about, and I feel like for as great an attraction is, Splash Mountain doesn't always get the love it deserves. But you know, the reason I chose Splash Mountain is because I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, and so we did not really have a theme park. We had a Six Flags Great America, which is mostly an amusement park with sprinkles of theme park in there. And that's where I grew up going. And I loved it, you know, because I didn't know what I was missing. I didn't go to Orlando until I was a teenager. So I grew up going to Six Flags Great America, and it might as well have been the best place on earth because me and my siblings couldn't wait to go every summer. It was the best thing in the world. And going to Six Flags, they had a log flume. It was one of my favorite rides. You know, you'd go on the log flume and you would just kind of cruise around some trees and some woods, and eventually you'd go up the lift and you'd cruise around a little bit more through the trough. Nothing to look at, but you know, it was fun because it was like a little ride. Yeah. And then you finally went down the drop, you got splashed, you had a great time. So I loved it. I was like, oh, the logs, it's great. And then we go to Walt Disney World. In 1992 is my very first trip to Orlando, and our very first theme park we hit was the Magic Kingdom, because that's how people do it. Like when they go to Orlando, Magic Kingdom always comes first, and we were no different. And so we get to the park. I'm with my dad and my uncle, and my uncle goes, you don't start at the front of the park, you start at the back of the park, because it takes everyone else too much time to get to the back, so you get no lines if you go straight back. So instead of like making an immediate left to Adventureland or immediate right to Tomorrowland, we went all the way to the back of Frontierland. And we hit Big Thunder Mountain first, I believe. And I really liked it, and it was great. And I was like, yay, that was fun. And then we went to Splash Mountain. So I think Splash Mountain was the second ride I ever rode. And I was like, oh yeah, log ride. I've been on this 100 times. It's Six Flags. Cool. It'll be fun. We'll go on the log. We'll get splashed. It'll be terrific. And I get on the ride and we launch. And one of the very first things you see is a animatronic figure of Brer Frog, you know, telling you the story. And I'm like, oh, wow, how cool. Like a little robot frog. That's neat. And then you go into the show scenes, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't know this was here. And like hundreds of animated figures, special effects, music, you know, lighting, theatrical lighting. And I was like, I thought we were just going to go down a drop. And I was completely unprepared for the level of show, the level of theming, and how immersive that attraction was. And so I rode that attraction. I was like, it's like 14 minutes long. It's so long. I don't know if 14 minutes is accurate. I'd have to Google it, but it's a long attraction too. So I thought, oh, we went through the first show scene, and I'm like, okay, now here comes the drop. No, there's like so many show scenes before you ever get to the final drop. And then there are a lot of mini drops in between. And I'm like, this thing just keeps going, and I'm loving every second of it. And it was such a stark departure from what I knew an attraction to be and what I assumed a standard log flume attraction was. And so when I got off it, I was like, that's the kind of ride I wished I had been going on my whole life, but I didn't know it already existed. I just was in the wrong state. So it completely blew my mind. It was, and I still maintain it is one of the most perfect attractions ever built, because it has everything. Yeah. You know, it has immersive theming, it has figures, it has effects, it has a storyline, it has enough thrills for everyone to enjoy it, but not so extreme that you alienate part of the audience, which again, that kind of inspires what I do, is like you want an attraction that is exciting and fun, but you don't want it to be so niche that most of the people don't want to ride it. Yeah. And Splash Mountain is like the perfect level of thrill that like, it ain't boring, but you're not going to get like huge, you know, most of the family going, oh, I'm not riding that. And same thing, like you get wet, and this is different between Walt Disney World and Disneyland, because Walt Disney World, you get a little wet, just wet enough. Disneyland, you get really wet. So that also, I think, causes some people to not go on the attraction. But at Walt Disney World, it's like, it's thrilling, but not too thrilling. You get wet, but not too wet. And it's so darn fun until you get to that drop that you're not just sitting there going, well, where's the drop? Because you just want it to keep going. So yeah, I just think it's an amazing attraction. And the reason I chose it again is it opened my eyes to like, oh, this is the difference between a theme park and an amusement park.
It's that buzzword around theme parks now is immersion. And you look at how old Splash Mountain is, and pretty much from the minute you launch out of the load area, you are immersed in that story. In Splash Mountain, I haven't been on it for so long, and we haven't been to Disney since 2013, and we're going back next year, and I cannot wait now because Splash Mountain is one of my favorites. I remember taking our 5-year-old daughter on it, and one of the only things she could remember coming back from that trip in 2009, the first time we went, was the crows at the bottom of the lift hill before you go down the big drop. She could quote them perfectly.
Yeah. There's those little effects like the fish, like they're fishing and the little fish just every once in a while will hop out. And it's like, oh, they didn't have to do that. You didn't have to spend the money on that fish that was going to hop out because who's going to care? But they did it anyway. And it's that extra step when working in theme parks that really makes something exceptional. So, and the same thing of like, it was the first time I'd ever seen a shadow gag in Splash Mountain, because there's a certain point where there's like these little rabbits, and they're talking about, oh, Brer Rabbit's gotten himself into trouble again. And there's a hill, and the hill is part of the wall, but then there is a projection of the shadow of Brer Rabbit being chased by Brer Bear and Brer Fox. And I remember seeing that shadow gag again first time and going, oh, wow, that's really cool. I've never seen anything like that. So there were all these little extra details or extra effects that they used in that attraction that I had never seen before at 14 years old, and going, oh my gosh, like they went all out. Like you can see it everywhere in that attraction.
I think it speaks to how good that attraction is as well, that it's based on a film that probably will never ever see the light of day again.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's true. But it's also it's the perfect attraction. And I use this argument, I wouldn't say daily in my job, but at least maybe weekly, because right now in the industry, we're so IP based. If it's not based on a hit film, forget about it. And I'm always like, but look at Splash Mountain. Yeah. This is a movie that you can't even buy. And everybody loves the attraction. Do you know why? Because the attraction's just that good. Yeah. And I feel like that rule could be true for any attraction. As long as the attraction is terrific, the IP is less important. Yes. But those decisions are made way above my pay grade, and I get it. I understand like the business reason for wanting to go with something that's tried and true. But you look at Splash Mountain, and that attraction opened in 1992. So yeah, it was brand new when I went. So whatever that is, 27 years? Crap. 27 years old, and it's still one of the most popular attractions in the park because the attraction's just the highest possible quality.
Andy, you say you were 14 before you got a chance to see what a theme park was actually about.
Yeah.
Oh, so lucky. So lucky. Before I was, let me work this out. 15, that can't be 27.
Oh, wow.
Before we first visited Orlando. And you say Magic Kingdom's the first park you go to. This is going to blow your mind. The first park Tracy and I went to on a trip to Orlando was SeaWorld.
No, that's okay. Ramp up.
In fairness, it was the day after a hurricane, so we didn't want to go into the other parks in case they closed anything down for checking things over. So,
well, good. You mix it up. I mean, I guess before I went to Orlando, I had been to a SeaWorld, but it's still different, and I do love SeaWorld for what it is, but it's different than going to like a Disney or a Universal park.
Without a doubt.
And so, but yeah, so I thought I waited too long till I was 14. So my heart goes out to you waiting till you were in your late 20s. Cause I grew up, even though we were in Illinois, that all the other kids had all been to Disney World, and I felt like I was the last one to go. And so once I finally went, I was like, oh my God, it's the best thing. So
and look at how much of an impact it had on you.
Oh, no. And I think that's it, is that trip in 1992 was what made me go, oh, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just Disney, it was that entire trip. But during that trip, we went to Magic Kingdom and Epcot and Universal Studios Florida. Those were the 3 theme parks we hit on that trip. And all 3 of them made me go, oh my God, I love theme parks. I want to live in a theme park. I want to work in theme parks. It's what I want to do. And Splash Mountain was a huge part of that. But that entire trip, it just changed my life, without putting too fine a point on it and going, oh my God. And then I became obsessed with theme parks from that point on. And I think that, the first real like bolt of lightning to hit my brain on that trip was riding Splash Mountain.
It's so bizarre to think about going to Orlando with no Animal Kingdom, no Hollywood Studios, no Islands of Adventure, no City Walk, no Disney Springs. It's just bizarre to me.
Yeah, well, yeah. So it was 1992, and you'll appreciate this. So we went with my father and my uncle, and they were like, okay, like we're definitely going to Magic Kingdom and we're definitely going to Epcot Center, because at that point it was Epcot Center. And they said, and you guys have to choose between, because Disney MGM was open. It opened in 1989.
Okay.
You guys can either go to Disney MGM Studios or you can go to Universal Studios Florida, but you choose. And we chose Universal Studios Florida because when we looked at the two like whatever guide maps, we're like, well, that one has more rides, so we want to go to that one. And,
but the rides in that park keep breaking down all the time. You might want to go to the other one.
Right. Right. But yeah, so we didn't do them all. We did go to SeaWorld too. I think we went to SeaWorld as well. But like, I guess in my father and my uncle's eyes, they were like, oh, the 2 studios parks are similar enough that we're only going to do one and we'll let the kids decide. I didn't go to Disney MGM until I went down on my college program in 97.
Which is weird because, we know you're a movie fan, and Tracy and I were the same. And it's like, no, we want to spend more time at the movie parks than we do with the other parks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Right. So the first one was Splash Mountain. I was not expecting that, Andy. I will be honest.
Surprise. Well, yeah, and for years, when I worked at Disney, I used to teach classes and everything. Like I would, for years, I would consider it my favorite attraction because of what an impact it had on me and how it really blew my mind of like what a truly great theme park attraction could be. And again, I love a lot of attractions, but and so it is weird that like when you hear people talk about their favorites, Splash Mountain isn't usually in the conversation. And I think it should be, because I do think it remains that good this many years later.
It takes, like you've already said, a theme park staple attraction, but just ramps it up and to make it something amazing.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's a ride that everyone has ridden, and almost every amusement park in the world has a version of. But then you ride Splash Mountain and you go, oh, wow, they took it and elevated it to make it something truly exceptional.
Because you can do what Universal did and take the same thing and kind of mismash it and go, we'll chuck a little bit of money at, and we haven't got it finished in time, just leave it. I'm looking at you, Dudley Do Right.
Oh, I like Dudley Do Right.
I do too. As well.
It's not Splash Mountain, but I still like it. Yeah.
Right, we'll take a quick break and then we'll be back with Andy's second and third choices.
Mouse and Muggle Travel Company, our services are completely free to you. We don't just do Universal. We can do Disney. We can actually do anything. I don't know if anybody knows that. We can do anything. We can book absolutely anything, and it's super easy. We have a website. Just go to mouseandmuggle.com, and we have a link there for a free quote request. You just fill it out. That email comes straight to me, and either Robin or I will handle it, or if we're a little bombarded, then we'll send you off to one of our expert agents. But we'll take good care of you. So reach out to us at any time.
Welcome back, everyone. We are back here with Andy Digenova. And Andy, give me the one you're expecting me to expect next.
Well, I think that this is the one that I already decided the order, and this is the one I think that you're probably already expecting. But it's also the one that almost didn't, like, that was in consideration for like maybe or maybe not making the cut. But I got to go with it. And so, we're going to step across the street into your world, and it's a Universal Studios attraction.
Okay.
Oh, so it's not what you thought? Did you think it was going to be another Disney one?
I did.
Oh, well, interesting. I'm curious as to hear what you thought.
So now you've said that, I think I know what it's going to be, because I think it's a discussion we've had many times about one similar attraction being better than another similar attraction?
Well, not yet.
Okay, maybe it's not.
So my number 2 is the E.T. Adventure.
Ah, okay.
And here's why I chose the E.T. Adventure. I feel like almost everyone my age, E.T. was like the first movie they saw in theaters. Because I was born in 1978. E.T. came out in 1982. So everyone in my grade was like 4 or 5. It was like the perfect age for your first movie in the theater. We all saw E.T. 1982. E.T. became the biggest thing in the world in 1982. And it became one of my favorite movies. And it was one of those movies where my grandma Ruth took me and my siblings to see it multiple times in the theater.
Wow.
When it was out, because it was out in theaters for like over a year. And then I feel like they brought it back. And so the movie itself was already like a big moment in my life, as well as, people my age. And it was a big deal for my family. And so we already loved E.T. And when Universal Studios Florida opened, at least in the commercials, you knew, oh, E.T. is there somehow. And as a kid, grew up watching E.T., you watch that movie and everybody wants to ride on a bike across the moon, fly on a bike with E.T. Like that's the moment in the movie that you go, oh my God, I wish I could do that, but I can't do that because it's a movie. But man, how cool would that be? And so Universal Studios Florida opens, and my grandma Ruth, she goes before I do. She was down in Florida visiting a friend, and for whatever reason, she and her friends, they went to Universal Studios, which I was so jealous of my grandma. And when she got back from her trip, I annoyed the crap out of her by asking her to tell me everything. And so I was like, what about this? What about this? What about this? And she has this great story about Back to the Future, the ride, because it traumatized her because she had no idea what she was getting into.
Right.
And she said that like she spent the whole time with her eyes closed, and it was just this really funny thing. But I just kept being like, what about E.T.? What do you do on E.T.? What do you do on E.T.? And it's like, oh, you get on the bikes and you fly through E.T. And what she said was, I just remember her saying, it's a very pretty ride. It's just really pretty. And I was just like, oh my God, I can actually get on a bike and fly with E.T. And so going on that first trip in 1992, that was what I was looking forward to most at Universal Studios Florida. And that was a huge reason of why we chose it over Disney MGM Studios.
Right.
Because when we looked at the lineup, we're like, oh, Universal has E.T., King Kong, Jaws, Back to the Future. Disney MGM Studios has Star Tours and the Great Movie Ride. And like, it just wasn't, when you lined them up like that, for us, we were like, oh no, we need to see E.T., we need to see Jaws, we need to see King Kong. And that's why we picked it. But the one I was looking forward to most was the E.T. Adventure. Because again, it was one of those, and you mentioned that in the industry, we use the word immersive or immersion a lot, and that's true. If I had a quarter for every time we say it in a meeting, I could just quit my job now. But one of the other words that we really love to use is aspirational. And so aspirational, meaning that you see something in a movie or wherever, you aspire to do that, you aspire to be that, you aspire to live that. And so when you see E.T., the aspirational moment is flying on a bicycle. And the E.T. Adventure is the attraction that really cemented in my brain of like, oh, we can make that dream a reality. We can actually make that happen through the magic of theme parks. Something that you've seen in a movie that you thought you would never get to do. Now you get to do it because we recognize that and we built it, and now you can live that dream. And so aside from just liking the attraction, because it was that aspirational moment from a movie and then a theme park going, oh, we're going to make that real for you.
Yeah.
And I looked forward to it the whole time. I wrote it. I loved it. I had this fantasy, and it's so nerdy. Like I was like, I have brown hair. I was 14. I was like, I should get the bike with ET in it because I look like Elliot. And I really thought that like the operations people would go, oh yeah, that kid looks like Elliot. You should sit in that seat. No, they're like, how many? Row 4. But like, it was just that moment of like making a movie real and really like making good on Universal Studios' original slogan, which has kind of gone away, which is ride the movies. It gave you the moment to ride the movie, ride ET. And so, yeah, because of that, the attraction has always held a very special place in my heart, which you do know, which is why I thought you would assume this was going to be my answer.
No, but
I think that what it truly inspired in me as far as my job is when you look at whatever you're adapting, IP or a movie or something, you always look for those aspirational moments. You look for that thing where you go, everybody wishes they could do this. And that's what you have to deliver for the guests. And the ET adventure was what taught me that.
It's a strange one in our house because I like it. Tracy can't stand it. She hates it with a passion. I think it's more like what I like that Universal did with, I think they tend to do it with all the attractions. You compare it to Disney when Disney do an attraction based on, let's take Voyage of the Little Mermaid, and it's basically a Cliff Notes version of the film. Whereas Universal tend to take whatever property is and they will, so E.T. puts you, sort of the first half is the movie, and then the second half is that weird trippy acid trip thing of the Green Planet. But they've taken, this is what you know, but we're going to extend it and also give you something that you've never seen before, but is still part of that world.
Right.
So you get to go, I get to do all the things from the film that I wanted to see, but then, I've never seen this before. This is cool.
Yeah, and I will say, the first time riding it, like once you arrive on the Green Planet, that surprised me. That took me aback. I didn't expect that because I really just thought, we're going to go, we're going to evade the authorities and then we're going to fly over the city. I really thought that was all the attraction was going to be. And so when you land on the Green Planet, I was like, okay, I didn't see this coming. And so I get it because it is weird and it is taking a huge step away from what you saw in the movie, and it's providing you something brand new. And I understand that, it doesn't work for everyone. But I also think that like that's another important lesson, and kind of what you were getting at is these attractions can serve to broaden the world of what you already know and bring you something that's new that you don't always get from the movie. So, some attractions is what we call book reports. And that is like Peter Pan's Flight, or Snow White's Scary Adventure. And the book reports is like, you see a really shortened version of the movie and then you get off. And then there's ones that's like an additional story in that world, which seems to be more the modern thinking. I mean, I guess Voyage of the Little Mermaid was a book report attraction, and that's relatively recent. But the more recent attractions you see less of that.
Yeah.
And because they want to give you something in addition to what you already get from the movie. And I also think that, the E.T. adventure might have been a trailblazer in that way, because it's like, you get this moment from the film that you already know, but we're going to give you something that you can only get here on the attraction, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, whether you like it or not.
Whether you're into it or not. And it is something I think that in 1992 when I wrote it, I even went, man, that was weird.
Yeah. You could just imagine everyone getting off the ride and just turn and saying that was weird, wasn't it? It wasn't just me,
that was weird. It? But like now, 27 years later, I go, I love how weird that is. Like, I love that they did that. I respect it.
But then everyone going to the parks for the first time now will probably still get off it and go, that was odd. What the hell was that all about?
Yeah. No, I was going to say it's the only place where you can see E.T.'s homeworld, right? Like it was never in a movie. It was never in a cartoon. It was never in a comic book. The only place you can see it is in that attraction. And now only one version of the attraction still exists. But hey, it was approved by Steven Spielberg himself. So he was okay with that. But no, it's crazy. It's completely weird. But again, I respect that.
I can't imagine if anyone had actually, not that we condone this on UUOP, by the way, but if anyone did happen to take some mind-altering substances and then ride that ride, what that would be like. Oh my God.
Maybe they'd cancel each other out and it would just be really boring.
Yeah. Oh. Everyone else is like, that was weird. Like, it was just rubbish, the end. I didn't think much of it.
Yeah, it was normal. What are you talking about?
But talking about trailblazing again, Andy, I think we've said it quite a few times on the show before, the ETQ, it's an immersive themed queue before immersive themed queues became a thing. Now it's all about themed queues, and yet that attraction is, we need 30 years old at this point.
Mm-hmm, right. No, that's very true. I don't know when the Hollywood one opened. I don't know if that opened before or after Orlando, but yeah, you're right. When you on the outside, when it's more about the movie, and then you walk through that right through the pre-show area and into the forest, and then all of a sudden you're in the movie. And yeah, that queue is still one of my favorites. I would just live there. I would camp there if I could. But it's true. Like, I mean, I'm trying to think. Like, yeah, there were certain levels of immersive queues in that, but I think that one, especially at that time, was one of the very best.
Yeah, the one in Hollywood opened a year after.
Oh, okay, interesting.
The one in Orlando opened June 7th, 1990. The one in Hollywood opened June 12th, 1991.
Well, there you go.
So yeah, I was not expecting ET. I'll be honest.
Well, and again, like there were some different contenders for this slot, but I think that what made me choose it was because I was like, that was an attraction that made possible what I had previously thought was impossible.
Yeah,
and that's what and that's what the very best attractions are continuing to do. Right now is things that you're like, oh, I wish I could do that, and now attractions allow you to do that, whatever it is, whether that be, flying the Millennium Falcon or visiting Hogwarts, making those dreams a reality. For me, ET was the one that went, oh yeah, we did this for you.
You look at it as well as a kid riding it. Something else we've neglected to mention is the ET says your name at the end of it. Have we had an attraction that does that since?
I don't think so. Because yeah, you're right. Like that is, I mean, that was really innovative in 1990. So not only did they go, hey, we're taking a flying attraction, which we had previously had, it's often compared to Peter Pan's flight, in at least in the overall kind of feel of like, oh, you're flying over a city. So there is a similar scene in both attractions. So they essentially like, oh, we're going to do a flying attraction, but we're going to amp it up, make it bigger, make it grander. It's going to be based on ET. And then they even took it a step further and said, what's a wow that we can put at the end? And they're like, we'll have ET thank you personally.
Which is
so
awesome.
Like, you got to respect that ambition. Yeah.
Because like as a kid, for you, Andy, then that moment must have been, oh my God, E.T. just said my name.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh my God, that's, yeah. He
knows
me. He knows my name.
And then it just ended up with loads of people trying to give random stupid names just to see what they could get them to say.
Yeah, I know. I like watching the attractions team members when someone gives them a stupid name, just being like, here you go. He's just going to say friend. Have a nice day.
Cool. So, Splash Mountain ET2, I was not expecting. Now, normally, I've only done 3 of these before, but there's usually some crossover. So far, none.
Surprise!
Is the last one going to be or not, Andy?
I can't remember what people said, but I don't think there's a crossover.
Okay.
I don't think so. Because, like, again, some of the other contenders that unfortunately I did not choose were just the all-time greats like Pirates of the Caribbean and the Haunted Mansion, because those are some of my favorite attractions. Yeah. But when I think, again, I'm following your rules of the ones that really changed the way I do my job and inspired me in what I do. As much as I love those attractions, they didn't necessarily, make me the way the ones I chose did. So I know that those are kind of, the big popular ones, but I think that you now know what my third one is going to be, because I feel like you thought it was going to be my second one.
Oh, okay. Go on then.
So this is also a Universal Studios attraction, but this is at Islands of Adventure.
I think it is going to be. Then.
And that is The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man.
Yes. We've had many debate over this attraction, Andy, and you're still wrong.
No, you are. So yeah, The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man. I did visit Islands of Adventure just a couple of months after it opened. It opened in May because it just celebrated 20 years. Yes. And it was really fun seeing all of our fellow theme park geeks celebrate the 20th of Islands of Adventure. And I can't believe it's been 20 years. But but that was the development and opening of that park was when the internet was really starting to become a more daily part of my life.
Right.
So like 1998, 1999. So I was following it as well as I could online at that time. And I remember when it opened, and I knew I was going later in the summer. And I remember reading like a review of it. And I remember reading a review about The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man and going, oh, this is the attraction of the park. This is the can't miss attraction. And it had some description, and I read it, like I wasn't spoiler averse back then because I just, I didn't care. But even so, it wasn't super spoilery, but it just gave you kind of an idea of what the attraction was. But what I remember is it going, oh, this is the flagship attraction in the park. And I was like, okay, great. Like, I love superheroes. I love theme parks. Glad to hear that the Spider-Man ride is awesome. So cool. And then I went in August of 99. And I want to say it was the first attraction we hit because I knew that it was the one you can't miss. And so the reason I chose it is because I went through the queue and I enjoyed the queue of the Daily Planet.
The Daily Planet?
You know what I mean?
Andy.
The Daily Bugle. Yeah, I always think DC first. It's just how I am.
Fair
I'm
enough.
Sorry. The Daily Bugle. That's what I meant. But I went through the Daily Bugle, and the way they set up the story and everything was good. And I got in the ride vehicle, and I had never really been in a ride vehicle that looked that way.
Yeah.
I know that the comparisons had been made with the Indiana Jones adventure at Disneyland. Is that like, oh, it's a similar ride vehicle to that. But I had not been to Disneyland at that point, so I had never ridden that. And so I got onto the ride, and you pull up to the first 3D screen, and I went, oh, cool. Okay, I get it. There's sets and there's effects, but like, oh, we're going to pull up in front of a 3D screen, and each one, something's going to happen, and then you move on to the next one. So I noticed the pattern and I enjoyed it. And I was like, oh, cool, great. That's neat. That's interesting. That's different. But after the first like 3D screens, I think it was like, once you get to like Electro and Hydro Man, you see the pattern. Is like there's a transition area of all like sets, and then you get to a screen, a villain comes out at you. You escape, you go through another transition of sets, you go to another screen, villain comes at you. And I was like, okay, cool. I get the pattern. And then once Doc Ock hits you with the anti-gravity cannon, and the whole thing changes.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you're surrounded and you're being whipped through the air and the villains are coming from all sides. And at that point, I was like it just got cranked up to an 11 and it completely took me off guard. And I was like, oh my God, like I didn't see this coming. And then the finale of falling from the top of that building, I truly felt like I was falling.
Yeah.
like I was holding on for dear life. And of course I knew it wasn't real. At that point I was an adult, but I was still so fooled by the effect that like I could not help myself of like holding myself back because I felt like I was falling.
Yeah.
And it was like such a perfect finale to that attraction that I was like, oh my God, like that felt real. And so the reason I chose it, aside from it, just I still believe it's one of the best attractions ever built. I think the reason I chose it was because it took someone like me who I thought I had it figured out, and then it threw me a curveball, and by the end I was holding on for dear life. That was pretty awesome. And then just the way it built. I think is perfect. The way it builds from meeting Spider-Man and seeing the villains to that big finale, it's like the perfect escalation of action and ends on the most exciting note. So like they save the best for last.
Yeah.
And I also think that it is kind of the perfect integration of all the things that make a great theme park attraction, of physical effects, of sets, of media, of ride vehicle and motion. And they use every trick in the book. And then in 1999, when it opened, every new trick they could to truly blow people away and show people something they'd never seen before. And much like, Splash Mountain, I think that even though it's been 20 years, I still think that attraction holds up amazingly well because of that, because they use everything. It's not just one trick, it's every trick to create like a truly immersive experience. Yeah. And so, like it opened my mind more to the possibilities of what an attraction can be. It showed what a huge leap in an attraction, could be, because I feel like at that point, it was 99. I spent a lot of years reading everything about theme parks and learning everything I could. At that point, I'm like, okay, yeah, I feel like we've seen it all, and everything's kind of a variation of what we've seen before. And the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man was like, no, there's still always room to do something brand new that you'd never seen before. And I think that that's what it delivered on. And and I mean, depending on who you talk to, for years, people are like, yeah, they're still trying to live up to that benchmark because that's how strong it was.
Yeah, I think Forbidden Journey is probably the closest thing they've done that's kind of taken what Spider-Man did and then took it to the next level. But Spider-Man, like just listening to you talk there, the screens interact with the physical sets. It's like it took me, I don't know, maybe a dozen rides to realize that first screen where Spider-Man swings down and he lands, I think he jumps onto the top of a wall and then jumps onto the ladder at the side and then onto the front of the car. I think it was a dozen times before I realized that the ladder that he jumps on is an actual physical ladder.
Yeah.
And it's so awesome when you see that for the first time. Like, oh my God, that is an actual ladder that moves. And then like it jumps on the car and the front of the car tips down slightly as it would do if someone had jumped on the front of it.
Totally. And that's exactly it. I think it uses media better than almost any media-based attraction out there because of that. Because what's happening in the media is interacting with the physical environment, which sells the illusion.
Yeah.
So you're right. That catwalk that he jumps on, it's a piece of show action equipment that is perfectly timed with the media. So it looks like he actually jumps off of it. And it's subtle, because you're right. It might take you a bunch of different rides to realize, oh, that's really there. Yeah. That's not part of the projection. And then the way he jumps on the hood of the car and the scoop buckles under his weight. And that, again, the first time I rode it, that moment I went, oh, wow, I know he's not there, but the vehicle reacted as if he was. And then that happens throughout, like when you turn away from Doc Ock and you're trying to escape him and you see that box, like there's a box off to the left of you and it's a real box. And it's like he's shooting the anti-gravity cannon behind you. You can't see him shooting, but you see the cannon hit the box and then the box starts to levitate. I don't know if I want to use the word subtle, but it's not a huge show-stopping effect, but it really sells, oh, he's behind me and he's shooting at us and he just missed. And now I'm seeing the environment react. Or the way when he breaks through that brick wall, which I do think is one of the most effective effects, and he one of his claws has flames on it and you feel the heat. It's all those effects that sell the media that I think really, elevate it.
I do think that it's lost something when they've changed it over to the digital projection. I've said it on the show many, many times. I don't think 3D works as well with the 4K projection as it did with the old digital film. You don't get that pop out moment as much as you did with the old film projection. So I do feel that it has lost something a little bit, but it was looking ropey before they changed it.
Yeah.
Now, to talk about wow moments, so the bit you were talking about, Andy, where Doc Ock blasts your scoop and then you lift up and the buildings are going past you and the screen and stuff. So I think it was about the 4th or 5th time that Tracy and I rode that, the screens turned off.
Oh, no.
But that gave me so much of an appreciation for that ride, because when you see how easily that the brain can be fooled, because at that point, with the screens going past, you're getting blasted with air to make it feel like you're moving up through the air, and the actual set buildings at the side are moving. All of that together makes you feel like you are being lifted up. Take the screens out of it and you can see, like, I'm just sat tilted at a 45-degree angle with they're moving, they're blasting me with air, and it makes you realise that the whole thing together is just stunning of how simple it is, but makes you feel like you say it, like it is real.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. And yeah, once you start, I mean, after you've ridden it 100 times, then you start kind of looking around and really trying to figure it out. You see stuff like that and you're like, God, it's so simple, but it works. And like I said, the end when you're falling, you're not, you're still sitting like normally, but they did such a good job of disorienting you through the past couple scenes that when you're falling, like I said, I pushed myself back because it felt like I could fall out, even though, my rational brain in the back knew that wasn't going to happen, but you were fooled by it. And it's all through pretty simple motion and everything. And
it is like, so the argument that Andy and I have alluded to, I think I've said it before, Andy, I do think Spider-Man is the better ride, but I have more fun and I enjoy Transformers more.
That's the argument. I like Transformers, the ride 3D. I do like it. But to me, I think the reason I give Spider-Man the edge is because it was like they took Spider-Man and they said, hey, all those physical effects?
Yeah.
Get rid of them all and do just the media.
Yeah, there isn't an awful lot of physical to it.
And so it's like this, to me, it's the stripped down version of The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man. And for me, it's, as we just discussed, the interaction between the media and the physical environment is what really sells the attraction. And when you remove those moments and it is more just about the action on screen, it's just, to me, it just loses something.
And as you keep telling me, Andy, that's why restaurants have menus.
Right.
But yeah, I think Spider-Man was the second ride in Islands of Adventure Tracy and I rode for the first time when we went over. So we did the Hulk first. We literally we walked up Port of Entry, went to Marvel Superhero Island. We hit the Hulk first, then went into Spider-Man, and I came off that ride just like stunned silence.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen to me
I was the
often.
same way. I was like, oh my God, I need to do that again.
Just amazing. Pardon the pun.
Yeah. I mean, and it was one of those, it was truly one of those game changers in the industry, but it's one of the game changers that I was alive for. Like there were a lot of game changers prior, but most of it happened before I was either paying attention to theme parks or before I was even born. But like that was a game changer that happened that I saw right when it opened, and while I was technically an adult, I was still a young adult, but I was, and so like that moment really was like a huge moment for the entire industry where I went, oh my God, like, to quote the Joker, you've changed things.
And it's going to be interesting to see what Disney do, because they're using Marvel stuff now. They are putting Spider-Man attractions about, and anything they do is going to be held up to The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man and Islands of Adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of what type of attraction it is. It doesn't matter whether they do a coaster or whatever. It doesn't matter what they do. That will be the benchmark, and that's what it has to live up to.
Mm-hmm.
And realistically, it ain't gonna.
I mean, yeah, that's a tough bar to clear, because I mean, once it opened, I mean, I don't pay that close attention, but I feel like it won like best dark ride for like at least a decade. Like it just, because it was just so, it was so revolutionary. And then for years and years and years, like it wasn't topped. And even now, I think that, some would argue it's been topped, but I think just as many people would argue it hasn't been.
Yeah, because that's the argument we've had with Forbidden Journey, for how groundbreaking Forbidden Journey was. It doesn't matter how good Gringotts was going to be, it was never going to be as good. Like, so everyone rode Gringotts and went, eh. Whereas I think if Gringotts had opened first, everyone would have loved it, and then Forbidden Journey opened afterwards. But because Gringotts was coming in after Forbidden Journey, everyone was like, yeah, it's not Forbidden Journey, is it?
Yeah, you're the victims of your own success.
Yeah. It's like, there's got to be a point when you can't do better than what you've already done. And then, I don't know what you do then. Just give up.
Nah, keep trying. You got to keep trying. Because again, I'm sure that there were people before The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man opened going, oh, no, like, we've done all that can be done. And someone figured out something new, And then we're continuing to see that in the industry. We're continuing to see, like, rides try to change the game, and some are more successful than others, but a lot of it's subjective. But you're seeing the big swings now, which I think is great. You're seeing it on the Disney side, you're seeing it on the Universal side, and every time one of those game changers really connects, that's great for everyone, because now there's a new bar that's been set, and now the challenge has been laid down, and everybody's got to work to try and see what the next big thing is, which is exciting.
Well, Andy, I'll be honest, I expected Pirates of the Caribbean to be in your list.
And again, it's one of my all-time favorite attractions. Like, truly, I adore it. But yeah, it's it just kind of slowly got edged out because I was trying to follow your rules.
No, it's perfect. You got 3 attractions that no one else has picked.
But yeah, I mean, come on, Pirates is one of the best attractions ever built. Like, come on. So no shade there, but.
No. Awesome. Well, thanks, Andy. It's been awesome to talk to you. And
it's been really fun.
Throw me total curveballs I was not expecting. It's good. No, that's what I like. Because the problem is, I know it's not about the attractions, but you want people to come on and talk about different ones, and you really have, and that's perfect.
I should have come on and go. The one that really changed me was A Day at the Park with Barney.
That was the Echo Tunnel, wasn't it?
Changed my whole life. Yep. Once you visit Barney's Echo Tunnel, you'll never be the same.
Yes. Cool. Right. Well, I guess that's going to wrap up the episode. So, Andy, it would be remiss of me to not allow you to plug the 1,000,001 places that people can find you. But, Andy, where can people listen to you?
I do podcasting of my own. So if you love Batman and the DC Universe, I do Holy Batcast. If you love Disney movies, I do Disorder, every Disney film with your previous colleague, Hunter. So you can check those out wherever you get your podcasts. And if you just like to follow me, my stuff is usually just theme park nerdiness on Twitter and on Instagram. It's just my name, Andy Digenova, ANDYDIGENOVA.
Yeah, and if you want to hear what I would sound like if I was an American, definitely listen to Holy Batcast, because Jamie is my brother from another mother.
I
love Jamie so much.
The Midwest bald grouch as opposed to the English bald grouch.
I will tackle the elephant in the room. No real fans there, Andy. Has he actually died?
I mean, it's in extended hibernation. Like, I wouldn't say it's not coming back, but there's a lot going on, and it doesn't seem to be on the top of anyone's priorities. And so, never say never. But I wasn't going to send people there and they go, hey, there's been a new episode in months. I thought, no kidding. So.
Get ready for your summer movie preview and
we missed
your holiday specials.
Yeah, I mean, what was the last one we did? How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World. I think was the last thing that we did on Real Fans. So I wouldn't say dead, but I'll try to resurrect it once things have settled down a bit.
That was the original. It needs to come back.
It was the original, yeah.
Right, of course, I need to get in. That Weekender tickets are still available, so go to uuoptheweekender.eventbrite.com for your tickets. And of course, if you want to send us your Universal is, Andy, you will like this, right? I don't know whether you listened to the previous shows of where I was actually reading the Court of Owls Batman New 52, which gave me an idea for the outro for our show, where he's discussing a section of the Gotham Gazette where they interview people and ask them to let them know what they think Gotham is in 3 words or less.
Okay.
So I thought, I wonder if I could use that. So the idea was to invite our listeners to give us theirs, which is fill in the blank of Universal is in 3 words or less. And this week's is from Sam Naj, and he said, Universal is, you like this one, amazing despite screens. So if you want to send yours in, of course, just send it to podcast@uopodcast.com. So for myself and for Andy, we will see you next week. And then, Andy, it's time for your turn for the outro, I guess.
Cut, print. That's a wrap for another episode of the Unofficial Universal Orlando podcast. Never miss a show by subscribing on Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review while you're there. Not an Apple user? You can listen on Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, or your podcatcher of choice. Email us any questions or comments to podcast@uuopodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, YouTube, Instagram, and Pinterest. Just search UUO Podcast. Keep up with the latest news, rumors, and updates on our blog at uuopodcast.com. Thanks for listening. See you next week.